church needs its body to be able to help out in any way that they can, whether it's playing in the band or helping out in the coffee shop or ushering or anything, helping out in children's ministry. There's a lot of stuff going on here, and we really need the help.
Oh, I love it. Just getting to do my part and help out.
It's really fulfilling. It also keeps you from wishing you had more small children when you watch everybody else's for a while, too.
I am volunteering in the bookstore.
How come?
Because I love books and I like to help people find what they need.
I'm going to run the overheads.
Why do you do this?
Because somebody asked me to help. It's something that really encourages you when you're volunteering.
I come every Wednesday night to try to do security.
I felt like I need to get involved in church, and it's something both Josh and I felt like we should do. Like, we're at Kaleo every Wednesday, and we felt like, well, we're here so we can volunteer, and it's fun, and we get to meet new people and make people feel more comfortable being here.
Why do I volunteer? Because I love to serve, and I love this place.
I love to see all these people, and I love the church, and I just like doing this kind of work.
I'm here on Wednesday night to serve coffee and to just hang out with all these great people.
Why do you show up and volunteer here?
Because God told me to. Well, actually, my wife did, but sometimes it's hard to tell the difference, you know.
This is fabulous. Greeting is one of the best things you can do for this church, and it blesses my heart.
Why do you do this?
My wife couldn't show up, and she asked me if I'd usher for her, and I've been doing it ever since.
Oh, I love it. We're just like a family. It's just been a great experience for me.
I enjoy working with kids. I have two of my own, so I enjoy getting to play that role here at church and just seeing the kids grow.
Well, for starters, it was really one of the times that I listened when God said, you need to get in there. And I just love kids.
My wife and I have done this for about 4 years. I've learned more in-depth knowledge about the Bible in that 4 years than I have in the other 45 years of my life.
I retired in 1992, and all I've done is volunteer since then. And the Lord has been faithful to us.
My wife and I come down every Wednesday, and every time Vicki asks us, we come down and help just to see the kids and all their smiling faces and how God is blessing them, and we get blessed in the same way.
I volunteer, and we have volunteers over on the other side working, and volunteers out there, and we all love what we do.
We're preparing dinner for the marriage course.
That's how the church works, is by volunteering in your skill sets.
We want to make sure that people know how important marriages are to God, and that they will be committed and learn how to do date night once a week.
I have met so many wonderful people and friends. We're reaching out to others so that they are learning about Christ.
Well, it's just a great group of people, and it's really a small group and small group atmosphere.
We never run out of things to cook, and we always have fun.
Their heart is in food preparation, and we know that a lot of healing takes place over food.
It's a way to serve. People are very appreciative.
What are you doing here today?
Warming up food for Clifton.
Why do you do this?
Because that's what God wants me to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
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 And
I'm afraid to talk. Is it working? Our third microphone, 3 times the charm. Way to go, John. And I can say domo arigato to all you volunteers. You are awesome and you rock. So I'm going to actually weave into my message today this blessing of volunteerism. And but I do want to talk about the reality that we've all, have experienced that since October of 2008, our world has radically, dramatically changed, hasn't it? That before that, it seemed like, especially here in the Grand Valley, it seemed like the economic opportunities were endless. And jobs were in abundance. And in fact, a lot of people that had businesses, it was hard to find enough workers for what was going on here. It was just a literal boom town. And after October of 2008, we see that we live in a totally different reality. Now, this obviously has affected the church. And as of 2008, what we see here happening is this line would be resources. So since actually 2007, since I came, we've kind of hit a flat line, that resources haven't been going up. And before 2007, it seemed like whenever there was a need for a new ministry, they would just hire a staff person and throw that person in. And so as the needs would increase, they just hire more staff. And so when I came on here in 2007, we had 57 people on staff. Now, what we have seen since 2008, though, since the economic crash here, is there is another line going up like this. And let's just label that ministry opportunities, kingdom opportunities, that because of the challenges and the life experiences that people are in right now, and it's really the death of the American dream, is what we've all experienced. People are asking spiritual questions more today than they have in a number of years. And so the opportunities for ministry, I believe, is going off the charts. Now, the question that we have, though, is, well, what does a church do when their resources are on a flat line? We cannot hire more staff. We can't afford to do that. Well, we listened to a talk from Bill Hybels again this week from the 2002 Leadership Summit. And what he talked about was really eye-opening to our pastoral team. And one of his guys came up with this kind of equation. And some of you are looking at that and you're having like flashbacks and you're starting to sweat and you're going, oh no, math. I don't do math, right? But what we have here is, let's say X would be our paid staff and Y is our volunteers, equals fruit. So if we can't increase staff, but the ministry opportunities are going up off the charts, the only way that we as a church community can fully engage in our culture, in our community here, and actually become a church that is vibrant, life-giving, where lives are being changed, is by increasing Y. Okay, so let's call this the Y factor. How do we increase Y? Now, one of the things that is important for us to understand is that we have a vision here. And if you are new here, you may not have heard this, but if you've been coming for the last couple of years, you may be sick of us talking about this. But we have E3, and that's helping people encounter God, others, and what? Way to go. Man, I like you guys. This is really the challenge that God has for us, is helping people to come into a life-changing experience in Jesus Christ, where we encounter God personally. And then through relationships with people within the church, primarily through small groups, people encounter others, and their spiritual gifts are able to come out as they minister among one another. And then the world is how we go out and engage in the world, how we enter into people's spaces, in a sense that we go to them. We take the church outside of these four walls and we go encounter the world. That's really our vision. That's our mission statement. And if you are new here, that's what we are calling everybody to do. That's our values. That's our goal. And so when you look at Acts, the book of Acts, what you see is in not only the apostles, but in all the people, this is what they were experiencing, that they were encountering God, they were going out and encountering others through fellowship, but then they went out and encountered the world. And when we look at the book of Acts, one of the misconceptions that a lot of people have was the apostles are kind of like these spiritual superstars. And that they kind of have this lofty sense of spiritual influence and a spiritual life that we could never attain that. It would be real similar to what we see in the modern day church, is that the pastor is elevated to a certain level higher than yourselves, and you say, I could never do what he or she is doing, because they're the pastors. And I want to refute that tonight. I want you guys to know that everyone in this room is called to encounter God, others, and then the world. We're all called to that. In fact, if you look at the scriptures in Ephesians 4, verse 11, it says, it was he who gave some to be apostles, some to be prophets, some to be evangelists, and some to be pastors and teachers. To what? Prepare God's people for works of service. So I think the modern day terminology that would be more appropriate for a pastor would be a coach. That a pastor is to help raise people up, to give them vision, to unify them, and then train them, equip them to go out and do the stuff. As John Wimber used to say, it's a big playing field and everybody gets to play. And my goal in being the pastor of this church is I want to see more and more people come to Christ. I want to see more and more people get involved in relationship among one another. And then I want to see those people learn to go out and encounter the world. I really have seen in my own life is that's when I grow the most spiritually, when I'm doing a balance of all three. And if you do a study on any church that is growing, that is vibrant, that is alive and life-giving, the people are all doing this. When there's a high percentage of the people in the church getting into this, the kingdom begins to move. Now, we're going to go to Acts 8, verse 1. And as we read through this, what we're looking at is that there is power in the gospel. That there is power to not only change lives, but change whole communities. In Acts 8:1, it says, and Saul was there, giving approval to his death. That this is the death of Stephen. On that day, a great persecution broke out against the church at Jerusalem, and all except the apostles were scattered throughout Judea and Samaria. Now hold on to that thought. Scattered throughout Judea and Samaria. Godly men buried Stephen and mourned deeply for him. But Saul began to destroy the church. Going from house to house, he dragged off men and women and put them in prison. Those who had been scattered preached the word wherever they went. They were going out and encountering the world. Philip went down to a city in Samaria and proclaimed the Christ there. And when the crowds heard Philip and saw the miraculous signs he did, they all paid close attention to what he did. They not only began to hear the gospel, but it was being demonstrated to them. It says, with shrieks, evil spirits came out of many, and many paralytics and cripples were healed, and their microphones worked. So there was great joy in that city. So what we see here is when persecution broke out in Jerusalem, the people literally had to flee for their lives. Run away! Run away! But little did they know that when the adversary began to attack them, that's where a door was opened up for opportunities for ministry. Stephen was the first martyr that we heard from Pastor Wade a few weeks ago. And as Stephen was martyred, this was like the hole in the dam. As the water began to come out of that one hole, Stephen's martyrdom began to break the whole dam down. And then the whole amount of massive persecution broke out against the people in Jerusalem. Now it's interesting here, this persecution came from the religious leaders, the Jewish leaders. It wasn't from the Romans. And that's an interesting thought, that sometimes people in the church shoot their own, don't they? It happened back then, it still happens today. But one thing I want to make note here is if there's one thing that will stifle us from going out to encounter the world, it's complacency. You see, you have to understand the way things were in Jerusalem at the time, life was good in Jerusalem. The scripture talks about them meeting together daily. And they could sit down and they could hear the apostles teaching. Can you imagine? You're sitting there, you're thinking, these are the guys that were with Jesus for 3 years. They're saying the things that Jesus said to teach us, and we're seeing them heal the sick. They're seeing them cast out demons. And then they got together in their homes and they would break bread together. They would share everything in common. Man, life was good. And that's what happens in the church. The same thing. We love to be comfortable, don't we? If there's one thing we don't want to happen to us is we hate being stretched. We don't want to be challenged, so we stay where it's easy. And when we stay and surround ourselves with nice Christian people that dress the same way, that eat the same foods, that listen to the same music, and we even talk the same, life is good. But what happened is when persecution broke out, God used that to force them to go out and do what God told them to do. In Matthew 28, Jesus, before he ascended to heaven, he says, you guys, go into all the nations and make disciples of all men. And